back, guys. Just another quick update because this dash is soaking up a lot of hours, repairs, modifications, etc, etc. So I'll get straight into it and just show you what I've been doing. But yeah, soaking up a shitload of hours. So I'm just prepping reinforcement for this area. And this area I've used a little bit of aluminium to get a nice right angle, because there's a little bracket type thing here to bolt to the car, so that didn't turn out too good, so I've just sanded that all back and prepped it and getting it ready for a bit of reinforcement. Same with this area, just want to reinforce this area. Just using carbon offcuts I've saved. Using this clear cellophane packing tape, this stuff, resin won't stick to that, so you can use that as a bit of a dam or to sort of mask off areas you don't want the resin to stick to. Works really good. And also, because carbon doesn't want to really bend around tight corners, it conforms to soft curves, but it doesn't like going like right angles. So I've just got these clamps, focus, and I've just put a bit of that cellophane tape around each end so I can clamp the ends and it won't stick to it when I want to pull it off. So it just helps a little bit. It doesn't give you a great finish, but it's not going to be seen anyway, so yeah. And I've also started sanding back this dash, and while I was at it, seeing I'm really messing this dash up, like I said, it already had holes in it and I had a big crack here which I've sort of ground out. I've decided to fill the cigarette lighter hole and the vent holes. I'm going to make alternative arrangements for these two vent holes. I've got another hole here I had to fill, so I've carboned that, and I also did the where the ashtray goes, so it sort of just evens it up a bit. I've got one hole there and one hole there, and yeah, I've still got a bit of trimming and cleaning up to do. Again, I've just used this tape just to stop, but yeah, it doesn't, looks a bit messy, but I'll trim all that up and clean it up a bit, and yeah, it's pretty strong. And just a little bit of filler over it, resand it. I just sanded back this dash with 80 grit. I'll go down the grades with 180 and 400, and then paint it eventually down the road. So I've put the reinforcement carbon in on the inside, and you can see where I've just clamped it to make sure it goes around that sharp corner in there, because there's not a lot of room, and you don't want it sort of lifting, so that's why I use the clamps. Same here on the where the bolt holes are, or screw holes, just to make sure it's not lifting or there's no cavities. You don't want a weak point there. So yeah, it's a bit of a messy business using this resin. I just use these gloves to try and keep most of it off myself, and when I measure, I just use scales, cheap set of scales from Bunnings. Just somewhere between 1% and 2% is usually good. I usually combination, these bottles are good as well. I can give you accurate measurements, but I just double check with the scales. And it's just polyester resin. It's pretty easy to work with. Yeah, I can use epoxies and all that, but they're more expensive, and I'm not at that stage where I feel confident enough to use those. They're a bit harder to work with. Polyester's pretty forgiving, so it works well for what I want. And I don't think in the 70s, I don't think they used epoxies in carbon. I think they were still messing around with polyester and vinyl ester, so yeah, sort of suits the period of the car. So, well, the carbon doesn't, but carbon was around back then, so, but they were just starting to experiment. Okay, so the next little project I've got to do while I'm doing the dashes around is I've got this GT or GS instrument cluster, which I must have picked up 20 years ago at a swap meet or something for like 20 bucks or something. I've already sanded this alligator type stuff, whatever you want to call it, off it, but it has got, the reason I picked it up cheap is because it's got big cracks in it, it's got missing chunks, most of where the radio goes is gone, as compared to a good one. It's much better. That one was the original one I had in the car because it was a Fairmont. I picked this one up probably same swap meet for probably 10 bucks or something. So I've got a couple to make a good one. So I've got to try and figure out what's the best way of doing this. Like I said, this is the bad part. So we'll see how we go. So what I've done is I've cut a bit out of this one and put it in the GT one, repairing that one. I've just used some blocks of timber and a hot glue gun. These hot glue guns come in really handy for temporary work, even for holding jobs down. I use it all the time, those hot glue guns. Glue guns. They are awesome for, like I said, just small jobs that you want sturdy. Rather than putting them in a clamp or something like that, you just glue it to a set of trestles or table or whatever, and it's pretty easy to get off once you're done. So what I've done is I've got the 2 blocks of timber to line the pieces up. I have cut more out here than I wanted to, because what I want to do is put carbon fibre and resin in that and then fill it, and the same here as well after the timber blocks are moved. I've put some thick metal wire, very stiff wire, in through here. I've just drilled a hole and I've just slid it in and put a 5-minute araldite on both sides, so that gives it some strength, because I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to get enough resin and carbon on there to hold it properly. So that and with some resin and carbon and then a bit of filler afterwards should get me out of trouble. I'm lucky I had a blanking plate which I put in to get it all square and everything. And funny thing is that because these are 2 different moldings, they are slightly different in profile, but basically I've got, using a straight edge, I've got it square along that edge, because that edge is really important, that little crease along there. So I've got those pretty much spot on. So yeah, we'll see how we go. I'll take the blocks off in a couple of days. I'll give that a good couple of days to harden up. Because these blocks are only, like I said, just a hot glue gun, and that comes off pretty easily. So take those off, then I'll get it into the surround and make sure it fits and everything, check for fitment, and then I'll do the resin and carbon, and we'll see how we go. Also, a Dremel is a really good tool to have. Since I've built this car, I've used it for all sorts of stuff, and this sort of work, they are awesome. Only thing is they don't tend to last long. I've gone through it. This one's just burnt out on me, and yeah, it's that's the only thing with them. But I do give them a hiding, and I think yeah, that's my third one. So yeah. Anyway, we'll see how we go in a couple of days. Well, I've finished the repair on the GTGS dash, and it's come up pretty good. And while I had the filler out and everything, I decided to make this fit around here a lot better. So I filled all that. It took me a couple of days of filling, sanding. I've also cut the slots for the lever to run around through here and foamed these edges up. So you can see that's where it came to originally, and I've extended it on both sides. So that's the fit. As you can see, it's a lot closer than the factory. I'll put some pictures up of restored dashes. There's a few guys that do them, and I'm not criticising their restorations or anything. In fact, their restorations is what inspired me to sort of go to the next level on this one and try and get the fit really perfect. They're doing factory restorations where this is a custom. So yeah, it's a lot better. It was a lot of work, a lot of fiddly work. I'll shoot a coat of primer on her, and I'll leave it in primer because I've still got a lot more work to do to get this right. So we'll see. So a lot of hours put into getting these gaps nice and tight and even. Remember, I've still got a lot of filling to do, but yeah, it's in primer for now. I'll get to that further down the track. The black primer gives me a rough idea what it looks like, and shows up, highlights any imperfections that I've missed, which is there's a whole bunch. So, but for now, yeah, the primer will do. But yeah, these gaps, like I said, on restored dashes, I've noticed that they had the gaps. When I was messing about with it, fitting it and refitting it, I just wasn't happy with the fit. So the restored dashes, like I said before, I'm not putting shit on their restored dashes. Like I said, they've inspired me to go to the next level because I really like the way they come out. But because this is a custom and a modified one, I could mess about with it as much as I like. Like I said, I've got a nice smooth finish here. It used to be vents and cigarette lighters and holes and everything along here. So, and I got rid of the ashtray. So I'm aiming for a nice smooth look to make it look, like I said, the architecture, I really like this style of dash. So yeah, I'm just, that's where I'm at. Well, I've dummied up the dash once again. I've lost count of how many times I've had this thing together and apart. It's getting there. I've still got to cut the hole for the vent. Still refining the shape on the foam. I've got most of the dash surround repaired and modified. I've made these gaps a lot better. I've closed them right up. It's only in primer, so it's still got a bit more work. I've still got a little gap here I've got to repair, but for now it can stay in primer until I've got everything modified and covered and repaired and whatnot. So I will not be painting the carbon or the dash in its final paint scheme until I don't have to keep pulling it apart and putting it back together and whatnot. So because it just gets scratched or too much of a risk of damage. So that'll do it for now. That gives me a good idea on how it's going to look. Like I said, I've filled in the ashtray and cigarette lighter and vent holes, so for a nice lot cleaner look, and repaired all this area. I'm after a nice clean look. Like I said, standard stock architecture, but just with a nice clean look. And yeah, so far I'm pretty happy with it. Remembering I've extended these bits here, and yeah, I'm sure it'll come up pretty good. Okay guys, I'll finish up here. Thanks for watching if you're still sticking with it. I know it's a little bit boring, but this work just takes forever, and because I can't leave well enough alone and I want to play with it and get it the way I want it to look, it just takes lots of fiddling and refining and backwards and forwards. So yeah, hopefully I'll start recovering this soon. I've still got to do instruments. I'm not using the standard instruments. More on that later. Yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.